Hey, how you doing? It's Clayton here from howtodrawcomics.net and the How to Draw Comics Academy. And welcome to this very special lesson on giving your characters more character. You see, one problem that I myself as an artist constantly come up against, as well as students who I've seen within the How to Draw Comics Academy when I go over their work every week in our feedback sessions, is that we do our best to draw the most impactful, relatable, energy filled character possible. And what happens? Well, it kind of comes out looking a little rigid, awkward, and stiff. What is that? Despite our best intentions, we wind out with a character that just doesn't pack the punch that we're looking for. Well, in this lesson, I'm going to teach you exactly what the heck is going on, why that happens, and how to get past it. The antidote to stiffness and flatness within your characters. We're going to be discussing how to inject more expression and personality, power and energy within your characters' poses and their facial expressions so that they're more relatable to the audience, so that they connect on a deeper level, and just so that they look more interesting on the page instead of robotic and artificial. That's not what we're looking for. We're not creating robots here. We're creating power-filled heroes. And so that's what we're going to be getting into in this lesson. Before we do, though, let me say a big hello to everybody joining me in the live chat right now. It is amazing to have you here, and it's really good to be back on the How to Draw Comics YouTube channel. It's been a little while, I know. I was on a bit of a hiatus. Well, just from the channel. Honestly, a lot of my time has been spent in the How to Draw Comics Academy with the wonderful students of the How to Draw Comics Academy. Every single week, we're doing live classes just like the one you're about to experience inside the Academy. And the beauty of it is when these classes are live, the students jump in there, they ask their questions, and I'm there to help answer them. It's a very engaging learning experience as you're about to discover, as you might be feeling right now. So we've got Arcadian Comics in the chat. By the way, this is James. James is a member of the How to Draw Comics Academy, one of the longtime members, actually. So is Matt Nicola. Great to see all of you here. Seriously, guys, it's, come to know these wonderful faces or avatars in the chat, and it's just so cool to have been able to watch these students progress and evolve. I can definitely say that about Matt and James here. Since they've been with us in the academy, their artwork is just continuously and consistently leveled up week after week, month after month. And to see that evolution is why I'm a teacher, to be honest with you. It's such a rewarding experience. Okay. Cool. Awesome to see you here, James and Matt. I hope you guys are doing good. Oh, we got Giovanni Mills here too. Giovanni's in the academy. All the academy students have showed up. Awesome. Of course they are here because if you're part of the How to Draw Comics Academy, you are serious about leveling up your drawing skills. There's no doubt about that. Awesome. Oh, we got Noah. What's up, Noah? Great to see you here. Thanks for joining us. We have Chris Weller. Wonderful to have you here, my friend. I hope you're feeling inspired, creative, and ready to do some drawing. Awesome stuff. I'm good, Noah. Thank you. I'm excited, actually. I'm a little bit nervous, a little bit excited about this lesson, but I'm looking forward to it. I know that it's going to be super valuable to everybody watching, especially if they've been struggling with this stiffness problem that so many of us face when it comes to drawing comic book characters. We've got the Luck Neko. What up, my friend? Great to see you here. Love your username. My goodness, it's creative. We've got Patrick. Hey, Patrick, good to see you here, my friend. Hope that you're feeling good. All right. Well, you know what? Without further ado, I say we jump straight into this and get started. Now, if you have any questions along the way, of course, be sure to leave them in the comments because after the lesson, I'll be here to answer all of them. All righty. I'm going to share the screen. And here we go. Let's do it. Whoops. I want to make this one big. Okay, Matt says, I will say the How to Draw Comics Academy is a great place to learn, of course, but the community within the academy is fantastic. Totally agree with you, Matt. Absolutely. It's you guys really have become a clan, my clan, and your clan, and it's just so awesome to be able to learn together and draw together and cheer each other on. It's really an amazing place to be. Oh, cool. Noah is 12 years old, and I love to draw. Well, I hope you get something out of this, Noah. It's good you're getting in early. It takes a while to develop these skills, so the earlier you can start, the better. All right. I'm going to focus in here. So I won't be looking at the chat. I'll be busy teaching you what it is we're here to learn about. But as I said, right after the lesson is done, and it won't go for too long, maybe an hour or so, I'll be here to answer your questions. So, like I said, be sure to leave them in there. I'll get to all of them. I'm going to have a sip of coffee before I begin. Can't draw without a sip of coffee. I need to give that up. Okay, here we go. We're in Manga Studio. Well, formerly known as Manga Studio. It's Clip Studio Paint these days. Shows how long I've been around. And in Clip Studio Paint, I'm using the Mark Brunet Legendary Line Art brush. Now, it is a wonderful brush. It allows you to capture a very nice looking, authentic pencil line on the digital canvas. And the best part about it is you can download it for free off of Mark Brunet's Cube Brush store. He's a great guy. Interviewed him once for the How to Draw Comics podcast. Really, really lovely man and talented individual. Okay, so let's talk about first what it is most of us do when it comes to drawing comic book characters. So I'm going to start this out by drawing what I would class as a bad example, but I'm going to do my best here. So here's what's awesome about the demonstration I'm about to execute. This is the first drawing I've done today. And as you might know, most first drawings that you do throughout the day are going to be a little bit stiff. They're going to be a little bit rigid. So check this out. I'm actually going to try my best here to create a character, or a figure rather. We're not going to be drawing anything too crazy and full-blown here. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw out a figure to the best of my ability. And we're going to say that this character is standing in one of those classic Jim Lee Superman poses. Okay, so he's standing there. It's a beauty shot. He's looking powerful. Okay, he's looking like a hero, not someone to be messed with. All right. So I'm going to go in here using my classic mannequin model building block setup. So we got the chest vest there. We got the pelvis. I call these the pelvis panties. It's a little unorthodox, I know, but I mean, look, when you lay that simplified pelvis in there, it does look like a pair of underwear. What can I say? I like to come up with little nicknames for each of these building blocks, so I am able to recall what it is I'm learning a little bit better. And what you can do if you want to get really fancy is you can add in these cross contours, so those guidelines around the chest and around the pelvis, just to give you a better idea of the three-dimensional qualities that we're working with in these building blocks. And then we're going to draw in the legs. So this is how I approach every character that I draw. I start out with the head, then I add in the torso. We just went over the torso in full detail, broke it down. Chest, abdomen, pelvis. Within the How to Draw Comics Academy, we did a whole series on it. It's pretty nuts. Okay, so for a heroic stance, we want to draw a character that is going to have, let's see now, a nice wide, spread for the legs. Okay. Now, you're looking at this and you're probably thinking, well, Clayton, this is already looking fairly energetic. And that's the first mistake, is we look at the first thing we lay down on the page and we go, hey, that looks all right. And we leave it as is. We don't feel the need to actually branch out beyond that and push it just a little bit further. Now, I will do an example here that's even worse than this one, because I want to show you a few different ways that you can mess up the process of posing a character. It's important that we understand and recognize when the problems occur here that lead to a stiff looking, underwhelming pose for our characters. Not something we want. Because comics, as you well know, they're all about capturing the reader's attention. They're a visual storytelling vehicle. And so when you've got content within them, visual content, that just doesn't pack a punch, doesn't really grab the viewer's attention, especially in this day and age where there's everything, you can name it, right? Like video games, social media, the internet in general, all vying for the attention of your readers. If you're not drawing something epic and cool and absolutely awesome, then hey, don't expect them to stick around for long. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. I don't make the rules here. I mean, think about it for yourself. How long does it take you to determine whether or not something is boring and not worth your time? Probably not that long. That's kind of like the process I go through when I'm trying to figure out what Netflix series I'm going to watch next. Like, if it doesn't grab me within the first few minutes, I'm done. I'm out of there. If the characters aren't captivating, if the acting looks a little bit weird, the expression doesn't quite hit, it's not relatable, then I'm out of there, man. I'm not going to waste my time. There's just too many things that I could be doing otherwise that'd probably be, more engaging and more of an experience to have. So you got to think about it that way. There's an attention economy out there these days, and there's a lot of competition that you've got to take into account when it comes to your art. And you can be an impactful artist. That is definitely possible, but you've got to develop the instinct. You've got to learn the rules of the game and practice them constantly in order to really make sure you hit a chord with the onlookers. Okay, so that's our first figure there. And you're looking at it and you're probably like, hey, you know what, Clay? I don't know what you're talking about. That looks okay. Well, at first glance, it kind of does look okay, even to me. I'm like, okay, awesome. We could work with this. We could start packing on the anatomy and make it look really good. But let me show you a little trick. I'm going to challenge myself here. Okay, I'm going to say, okay, well, this is a pretty good heroic pose, but how can I really exude more power here? How can I expand on what I've done? How can I exaggerate it? And it really is an exaggeration process. So here we go. I'm going to move this dude to the side, and I'm going to ask myself a few questions as I look at each one of the building blocks we use to construct the initial character. Look at the head here. We can see the head is slanted a little to this side, right? It's on a bit of an axis that's tilted. And we notice that the head is rotated, so we've got a lot of nice dynamic decisions that have been made in terms of its orientation already. But what if we push each one of those turns and tilts? Okay, what will we end up with? Well, let's go ahead here and let's say that we put the head on more like this tilt. What would happen? How would that feel right off the bat? So if we place the head in like that, okay, we're not drawing anything complicated here, by the way, even though this is one of the most important aspects of any drawing is getting the friggin' foundation right. It's actually pretty simple. It's just an oval, right, for the head. All right, so now the head is tilted in an even more downward direction. I'm going to place these guidelines in to really make sure that we're describing it as best we can. And then we're going to lay in the front of the face. Okay, so now all we've done is we tilted the head more forward. Okay. And the next thing we're going to do, we're going to have the neck here, so we'll lay that in. We look at the chest, you can see that the chest is out. Okay, it's lifted. This man has jolly good posture, better posture than I do. And you know, it's working pretty well, but I think we could push it a little bit more. What if we push that chest out even further here? Okay, what if we, oh, that might be a little bit too much. Okay, there is limits. There is limits that can be broken, so just keep that in mind. But you can push it a fair way before those limits break. Okay, so let's say that we're pushing the chest out and up like that. How would that feel? Now, I'm not a perfect artist, so I might mess this up. You'll have to forgive me if I do. All right. That's the thing about being a comic art teacher is there's a lot of pressure, man. You gotta perform. But the reality of being a comic book artist is you're constantly making mistakes, no matter what level you get to. See, nobody tells you that, is that you're always going to be making mistakes. And that mistakes are actually a really awesome thing. In fact, the only reason I'm able to draw anything at all is because I'm able to solve the mistakes that I inevitably make. That's the key, is just knowing how to solve those mistakes. So now, with the chest pushed out there, up like so. So check that out. Look at that. Boom. Angle 1. Boom. Angle 2. Yep, that's what we're looking for. Check this out. Barely any angles. Well, not an angle that's as steep. So we've got some exaggeration going on. We've got some additional movement. Okay, now we're going to push back the abdomen and tilt even further back the pelvis till we get something that looks like this. Okay, let's check that out. All right, now we have some bodybuilding blocks that are placed and rotated, tilted in a way that's just that little bit more expressive. All right, awesome. So that's working quite well. You can see that it's subtle, but there is more energy, there is more movement there. That's what we want coming through. We don't want meek. We could get even meeker than that, by the way. We want strong, we want powerful, we want alive. All right. Okay, awesome. So next up, we're going to tackle the legs. And the other thing I wanted to point out here, just before we move on real quick, is we're also emphasizing shape as we emphasize the pose. Okay, take note of that, because shape is incredibly important when it comes to drawing. Okay, so now we're going to add some more energy to the legs here. You'll notice that I'm starting to draw with a little bit more speed and a little bit more of a confident line here. I'm going to add an extra bend to the legs. So we want movement happening within these legs. And by movement, I simply mean we want, for example, the bend of the leg to be exaggerated just that little bit more. As we pull this contour up, we want it to curve around the knee a little bit more to the right. And then we're going to take it back up. Look at this zigzag line that we're creating throughout the leg. That creates energy within a pose. Now we'll tackle the other leg. You know what? We're going to actually pull that leg out a little further on the other side. Let's go ahead and do that. So pulling it out over here. We'll draw it down, curve it around. And I'm looking at this and I'm going, all right, that's pretty exaggerated. So We will have to go back and no doubt make some tweaks here and there. But you can see there's a little bit more interest going on within this pose. It hits you in the face harder when you look at it. That's what we want. Even if it feels a little silly to exaggerate a character to this extent. You know, if you look at the work of Rob Liefeld, dare I say it, it might look a bit crazy sometimes. Like the anatomy is whack. There's no doubt about that. But I mean, there's no denying that his books sold like hotcakes back in the day. I mean, his work hit a chord with people. They loved it. And I guess, you know, these days, in the age of memes, his work has become a bit of a meme. However, you know, the thing is that once upon a time, his work had a serious fan base. It still does, really. Okay, so probably what I'll do in a little bit, once I've got the arms in there, is I'm going to re-attend to the legs. But that's what I do when it comes to drawing characters, is I'll keep on going. If I'm not quite happy with something, if I can't quite figure it out, I'll mess around with it for a little bit. If I'm not getting anywhere with it, I'll just move on to another section and let that other section, as I work on it, inform the decisions I'm going to make in those areas I'm not all that sold on. Okay, so now we're going to draw in the arms. And you can see here, you know, the arm's kind of resting at his side. Well, what if we go ahead and we pull that arm out like this? What if we take it out to the side like so? We go ahead here. And then we twist that forearm around. So we give it even a more extravagant curve. Look, we can have his fist there. I'm just scribbling out a little something for the fist. I'm not getting too crazy detailed and structured on those hands there. Okay, cool. And then we'll jump around to this side and draw in that arm. Figure out, all right, how does that arm need to be rotated and angled so that it matches up with this arm on the other side. Symmetry is going to be another lesson that we talk about in a different video, but you know, we've done plenty of lessons and we bring up symmetry all the time in the How to Draw Comics Academy. So if you have trouble with symmetry, definitely check out the How to Draw Comics Academy library, because it'll help you out there big time. Okay, so we're going to twist this forearm around. All right, there we go. And notice that sometimes I'll draw one arm probably a little too low or a little too high. Same with the legs. You just go back and you tweak them. That's what these mannequin models are built for. You know, you can call them mannequin models, but you can just as easily call them test dummies, because, I mean, at the end of the day, they are there to be modified. And I modify my test dummies liberally, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how pretty this is, it matters that we get it right. Okay, awesome. So I want you to compare and contrast these two. What are the changes we've made here? All we've done is we've taken the original idea, okay, which isn't a bad idea, and all we've done is just push it. We pushed it further. We've exaggerated it. And as a result, not only do we see that the building blocks themselves are, you know, tilted and rotated more extensively, but what it does in turn is it actually creates a more interesting silhouette. Now, what do I mean by interesting silhouette? Well, I mean the outside shape of the character is just more interesting to look at. Like, there's a lot more going on with it now. So, all right, what I'm going to do now is an example of what I see a lot of artists do, and you might recognize it within your own work, but this is usually what I'll end up with when I first start drawing down a character. I'll start out with something that looks okay, but could be better. All right. And that's me as an experienced artist. I've been doing this stuff since I was a kid, 25, 30 years, right? Like literally, I've probably been serious about being a comic book artist for 20 years. It's crazy. It's nuts. Probably been teaching it for like 15 years. Crazy to think about that, really. All right. So here's what I see from most artists starting out, but even from artists who have a little bit more experience under their belt. So, actually artists who are intermediate. All right, so we're going to do a bit of a different pose here, but this is a common thing that I see, right? Actually, let me move these over here. I'll see it a little bit better. All right. So what I'll get oftentimes handed in to me for our feedback sessions in the How to Draw Comics Academy, and I'll get a character kind of like this, right? And it won't even be that bad. We'll have the face facing toward us and a little bit of a tilt. We might have the rib cage here, so we'll get that drawn in. Right, so all the bits and pieces are usually there. There we go, there's the rib cage, we've got that drawn in. We might even have a little bit of a curve in the body. All right. Then we got our pelvis here. So we'll get that laid in. Now, you might be watching this and going, wow, Clayton, you're pretty fast at drawing these mannequin models. Well, don't worry, you'll get there. And I can tell you that if you do 30-second poses every single day, figure drawing poses like I did back in the day, you will 100% arrive at the place you want to be at with these mannequin models, and you'll be able to draw out a pose very quickly. Okay, and then what you'll usually see is you'll see like a nice leg coming across here because it's supposed to be a somewhat dynamic pose, right? Then we'll see the lower leg going back. By the way, I'm being pretty kind here. I've come across much worse than this, but what we're trying to do here is really to just illustrate a point. Okay, so for this one, we could even turn this. I should have turned this character into a female, really, just for a bit of variation. Why don't we go ahead and do that? Just widen the hips there, maybe. That's the secret to drawing the ladies as opposed to the men, is just widen their hips, shorten their shoulders. You'll have a nice feminine looking physique. Okay, there's equal opportunity to mess up here with both the male and the female mannequin models. All right, and then what we'll do is, look, we'll just get rid of that. And we'll draw down the other leg on this side. Okay, and that one will come down to about there, let's say. And draw in the lower leg. Calves. Get those beautiful calves in there. Look at the shape, by the way, I'm describing these mannequin models with. Make sure you're integrating that, for goodness sake, within your own figure drawings, because it helps a heck of a lot when it comes to laying in that anatomy over the top. Believe it or not, it is the anatomy of anybody that gives them the shape that they have. I mean, think about it just for a second. You got a ripped bodybuilder that hits the gym every second day, low body fat. What's going to determine the shape of their body? Muscles. Alternatively, you might have somebody who's really, really skinny. They've got no muscle or fat on them at all. What's going to determine their body shape? Well, probably a little bit more so their skeleton. All right, well, let's say that you have a little more of a heavier set person, a little bigger, a little bit more cushion for the pushing. Well, what you're going to get is you're going to get the fat deposits actually determining the shape of the body there. So thinking about the anatomical makeup of your characters and what kind of shape they're going to have as a result is going to allow you to capture the right physique. And I mean, you could probably integrate that, any of those physiques, into the mannequin model, but ultimately, we're going with the standard here, right? So it's a little bit of a mix of the skeleton here with the chest and the pelvis, and a little bit of a mix of the actual muscle structure underneath with the calves. Okay, wonderful. So we've got a leg going out in this direction, one going down. Okay, awesome. So next up, we're going to have her arm coming up here on this side, like so. And we're going to have a forearm coming up and leading into the hand. Okay, wonderful. There we go. Okay, next up on this side. See, this is a dynamic pose, right? Well, you're going to see how we can make it even more dynamic in a little bit. I can promise you that. Next up, we're going to have this arm coming down here. And we're going to attach that to the forearm. And let's see, maybe this forearm is coming in behind. No, we won't do that. That'll look weird and awkward. Okay. How about we'll just have it coming down like so. Okay, there we go. Done. All right, so we look at this pose, and I bet if he drew out a pose like this, you'd be like pretty happy, you know, and I'm pretty happy with it too. I think it looks like a jolly good pose. But the thing is that it could be even better. And when we got a pose that could be even better, we may as well take it all the way. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to show you how to make this way more dynamic than what we've drawn it. And we're going to use a little thing called foreshortening in order to do that. And let me just show you the power of foreshortening here. We're also going to combine a little bit of what we talked about in the previous examples. So pushing the tilt and rotation of the different parts of the body. So we'll jump over to this next example. We're going to do this pose again, but we're going to do it better. All right, so once more, we're going to get a nice tilt happening in the head, and we're going to place that tilt on the opposite direction to the tilt of the chest. All right, so we've got an opposing angle there. So lay the head in like that. And then we'll draw in the chest. So notice, tilt of the head is this way, tilt of the chest is tilted in the opposite direction. So that basically instantly creates a more dynamic pose, simply because that's how the body balances itself out naturally. It feels very natural to do it that way. All right, so check this out. We're going to pull the chest up like that. All right, we're going to pull it out, draw in the arms. Now notice that I've actually rotated the chest this time around. So instead of it having a position where it's smack bang directly facing us almost, no, we're rotating it so it looks more three-dimensional, okay? Ask yourself, when you're drawing down your pose, could I rotate this a little bit more? Is it looking a bit flat? Because when you have poses or faces or anything that's facing directly at you from the front, well, what is the front view? It's essentially a two-dimensional view. So is the side view, so is the back view. And the moment that you introduce another axis, okay, another three-dimensional axis, then you've got 3 dimensions, right? And so that's the key to creating something that has more depth to it. All right, so check this out. What we're going to do is get really nuts. We're now going to go ahead and we're going to push the pelvis all the way back. We're actually going to foreshorten the entire body here quite significantly. And I want you to just notice the impact that it has. Now, listen, you're going to be watching this and you're going to be going, wow, Clayton, that does look amazing. But damn it, I don't know how to foreshorten anything. I can foreshorten a cylinder. Well, guess what? I got you covered. Go to the How to Draw Comics Academy. We got loads of lessons on foreshortening. Shows you exactly how to foreshorten simple forms like the ones we're using to create these mannequin models. And if that's too complicated for you, don't worry. We get really primitive with it, so you won't miss a beat. But this is just really more to show you the power of foreshortening. So once you've conquered it, here's what you can do with it. Here's why it's worth learning. So we're going to foreshorten that entire midsection back there, along with the pelvis, like so. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take that leg. See this leg here? That was like facing, like check this out. It's such a flat angle. We're looking directly at the side of that leg. That's a big no-no. That's boring. It looks kind of cool, but it's not as cool as it could look. So here's what we're going to do instead. We're actually going to have that leg come toward us like so. All right, check that out. Boom. Coming right at us. The thing with foreshortening is sometimes you got to make some adjustments. So we'll go ahead and do that. Don't be afraid to pull out the eraser. There's no shame in that. I do it all the time. Comes with the territory of being a comic book artist. If you're not making good use of that eraser, you're probably making mistakes you don't even know that are there, and they're going to stay there until you get rid of them and take the correct course of action. Okay, so we got that leg coming toward us now, and then we're going to have it going back in space. All right, I'm going to lay it in like so. Now we've got to capture the same angle here, of course. All right, this is why it's so important to understand how to build the body out of simplistic forms, because let me tell you, foreshortening a simplistic leg is a heck of a lot easier than foreshortening a fully complicated, complete with anatomy and detailed design leg, okay? That's not something you want to have to contend with in these initial stages, trust me. So you can break it down into simple forms, you're going to do a lot better. Okay, there we go. So now we have the lower leg going back in space, and we could probably adjust that. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll flip the canvas around like that, just to double check that everything's coming together the way that I want it to come together. You know what? That's actually not too bad. All right, we're doing okay here, folks. I like to call this the sculpting stage of the process. We're just sculpting it out there, like so. And look how much movement we got in there. Beautiful. So much gorgeous movement. That's exactly what we want. All right, done. Reshape the foot a little bit. Then what we're going to do is see this leg here that's just coming straight down. It looks strong. It's a strong foundation, but it ain't doing a whole lot. So let's go ahead and actually lay it in here in this example. Going to have it run back behind that leg. And then we're going to have it curving down. Look at that. Look at that beautiful curve that we've got in there now. And hey, we'll foreshorten the heck out of that leg too. Since the body here has been foreshortened to the max, we'll foreshorten that leg. Let me hit the undo button a few times there. That's the beauty of drawing digital, is you can just hit the old undo button. Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. But it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, all that matters is going to be whether or not the finished product looks good. Okay, so now I'm going to foreshorten this leg. And we'll have it maybe come down to about that point. Again, I'm going to flip the canvas. So when you're working on complicated poses such as this, you do want to try to make sure that you're looking at it from all angles, all perspectives, so you don't miss a beat. All right, like it's the equivalent of going away for a bit from your art, actually getting up from the desk, taking a bit of a break, and then coming back to it later with a fresh set of eyes. Okay, there we go. So I'm looking at her head here. It's probably a little bit too tilted. We don't want her pose to be positioned in a way which is too strange in appearance. All right, why don't we have the head like actually rotated a little bit more to the right as we're looking at it here? That could be cool. So this would actually be the side of her head here, and she'd be turning it. All right, beautiful. Now I'm looking at this leg and I'm like, hey, you know what? That could be lifted a little bit more. So let's go ahead and do that. Check out how easy this is to adjust. Just get the eraser out, you reposition it where you want, and you do your thing. Okay, don't be too precious about your art, especially during these foundational stages. That's not what this stage is about. It's not about being precious. If you're being precious at this stage of the process, you're probably going to wind out with something that looks super generic and not interesting. Right? You got to give yourself the freedom to be adventurous, to mess up during this phase, because this is where the idea making happens. Okay, beautiful. So now we've got something nice and dynamic going on there. I'd probably adjust some of the anatomy a little bit. Give the front of that leg some more volume. Okay, wonderful. Let's flip it back around here. Okay, next up, what we're going to do is we are going to take this arm over here, and instead of just having it flop straight down like that, we're going to have it come toward the viewer like this. Okay, so check that out. And we're going to have the hand there. Now you have to forgive me because I'm drawing hands on the fly here, and I'm like every other artist. I hate drawing hands. I'm not that, well, actually hands are kind of fun sometimes, but I'm not that good at drawing them. So if the hand looks a little bit weird, do forgive me. I'm thinking maybe we draw something a little bit like that. Okay, I'm going to keep it pretty simple, pretty messy. I have that forearm curve back. Then we draw the outside contour of it in a curved fashion, leading back into the upper arm. Now we want this curve here at the bottom. We want that to be emphasized, right? Because that, again, leads to a more interesting silhouette, creates more energy within the figure. It's just going to leave a more memorable impact on the page, which is what we want. We want our audience to remember what they've seen within our comic book long after they close it, so that they come back for more, and so that they become invested within the story. Okay, now this head I'm still not happy with, so check this out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead here, and I'm thinking if I can, I'll maybe draw in the front of the face there. Oh, hey, check this out. We could actually tilt the head in an upward direction here like that. And that'd be the base of the jaw there that we're looking at. So that could be cool. Now, I've drawn a little bit more of a petite figure here. It would normally actually create a longer figure with more height, but I think I kind of got carried away with this foreshortening and lost my way just a little bit, but that happens. Still looks good. Still has a little bit more going on with it, a little bit more energy. And that's the thing, you got to be fearless as an artist. You got to be willing to mess up, take risks. You want gangster results, you got to do some gangster shiz when it comes to comic book art. And that means being not afraid, rather, being brave and adventurous with your work, seeing just how far you can push it. So check this out. We're going to take this arm out here that we had going on before, and we're going to pull it out toward the viewer. And then we're going to have this forearm come out, bringing the fist toward us, right to our face like that. And how awesome does that look? That's going to look so good. Literally, this pose is packing way more of a punch now, which is exactly what we were looking for. Now you'll notice that that arm in the upper region is a little too long. So we're going to just do a little erasing here, do a little erasing there, and we're going to scooch this up to about here. I'm feeling like that'll look good. And then what we can do is we can readjust the positioning of that upper arm like so. And there we have it. So I want you to look at these two poses here. If you're a comic book reader, which one is grabbing your attention? Which one feels more alive, has more energy and dynamism to it? It's this one. That's why you want to learn foreshortening. Foreshortening, important. And the way that I teach it in How to Draw Comics Academy, trust me, it's not hard, right? There's very simple exercises you can do to fully grasp foreshortening in a way that makes sense and is usable for you as an artist. Now, as an extra little bonus here, what we're going to do is lay in some anatomy over these figures, just so that you can see how that moves with these more powerful poses. And really how easy it is to build up from the mannequin model, because you might be like watching this right now thinking, man, Clayton, you're really skimping out on us right now. Like, come on, why don't you show us something a little bit more fancy than these mannequin models? Well, here you have it. All right, we're going to lay down some breasts onto the chest of the female. We can even go ahead and talk about incorporating the abdominals. Just uploaded the abdominals lesson actually to the How to Draw Comics Academy. It is a good one. I was editing it just yesterday before I uploaded it, and I was just thinking, damn, this is awesome. I wish I had this back when I was trying to learn this stuff. There was like nothing. I'm telling you, there was nothing out there except How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way and a few courses that I found on the Gnomon Workshop by David Finch. There was not the abundance of information that we have at our fingertips, nor the quality that you see today, which is just, I mean, it's no wonder you're seeing artists out there these days who are freaking like 12, 14, 18, and they are absolutely killing it. They're like competing with the pros easily. It's nuts. Okay, so there's the torso there. And for the ladies, you really don't have to add too much muscle definition to them, especially around the legs. You want nice, soft-looking thighs most of the time, so you can just really focus on capturing the right shape more than anything else for them. Something which I definitely suggest learning about also is just how to ensure that you're really nailing the shape of your characters and emphasizing them, stylizing the anatomy in the right way. Because knowing good anatomy, it's not enough, unfortunately. You gotta do more than that. You've actually got to put some pizzazz into how you express that anatomy on the page. Now, of course, expression doesn't just come through poses, it also comes through faces, heads, and we'll probably talk about that in another lesson just because we're running out of time here. But if you do want to learn more about that particular topic now, we also have some lessons on facial expressions in particular in the How to Draw Comics Academy, which you can check out via the link below. Now, let's continue on here. We'll add a little bit more emphasis to the anatomy of this lovely lady. You can see that even though we're adding anatomy to all of these different versions, it's not about the anatomy as to whether or not they're going to pack that visual punch that we're looking for. And the thing is that some of these poses are good to go, right? They're fine. They are drawn somewhat well. They got the right proportions. They got the anatomy in the correct spot. And that's all good and well. But the thing is, when you're stacking up these more generic, kind of non-energetic, non-depth defying poses next to the more dynamic ones, in other words, in the real world, if your comic book is kind of generic looking in terms of the visuals, and it's sitting next to another book on the shelf which has crazier, more dynamic looking characters, well, guess what? Unfortunately, that comic book that's next to yours is going to be stealing the spotlight, stealing the attention. So that's why this stuff is important to learn. And I do see comic book creators out there all the time who are trying to kickstart their projects and get the attention that they're dreaming of getting on it. But the thing is that I look at the visuals, and I got to be honest with you, you can't sell a comic book. You can't get people to sign up to a comic book campaign based on the story alone. It might be an absolutely awesome story. Guess what? They're never going to get the chance to experience it if the promotional imagery isn't on point. And so it's the art that sells the backer on the story inside. And if the art looks good, if it looks killer, if it's kick-ass, then guess what? People are going to be like, well, I want to check that out. You have to think about the audience out there that you're aiming your project at. It's comic book readers, right? Now, if they cared that much about the story, they'd be reading novels. Okay? Comic books are a visual medium. The visuals matter. Make no mistake about that. That is just the cold, hard reality. You can't deny it. It's just, it is what it is. Now, if you've got brilliant visuals and a crappy story, well, unfortunately, it'll be harder to keep those readers around once they do give your book a chance. So make sure that if you draw them in with the visuals, that the story holds up. But it is going to be the visuals that come first. And that's the point that I'm making here. So make sure that you invest the time into creating a visual representation of your comic book characters and the worlds that their stories are told in a compelling, riveting way that's enthralling, that leaves a mark on the reader that they're going to brag to their friends about, right? You might look at some comic books out there that are a little bit more stylized. Like there's a lot of manga out there that's pretty simple in terms of its visual appeal. But that's the thing, is simple doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that it's a different style. There's plenty of artists out there that have a slicker, more streamlined, sharp-looking style that's absent of a whole bunch of rendering. Michael Turner is a great example of this. J. Scott Campbell as well. All good examples. And they've got a flavor to their art that is really easy on the eyes, actually. It's not something that is too taxing to process. And the thing is that that's why it actually attracts an incredible audience, is precisely because of that. So think about the kind of audience that you want to attract, the effect that your artwork has on that audience, and then within that genre of style, do your best to make it as epic as possible. Okay, because look, there's a difference between simple, slick-looking art and just plain downright bad art. All right, it's not the details that make it good. It's going to be your ability to draw characters with energy, to draw them with decent, aesthetically pleasing proportions. Now, the 8 heads high standard measurement for the human body in comic books is it's one standard that exists, and it works pretty darn well. I'm not going to lie, but you can have 9 heads high, you can have 6, 7 heads high, you can have freaking 11 heads high if you want. It really doesn't matter as long as those proportions look good to the human eye. And so that's all that matters. Like you can follow all the rules in the book, you can get it perfect, at least in an academic sense, but if it doesn't look good, it doesn't mean anything. So you've got to keep that in mind as a comic artist in training if you want to hit that master level. And eventually, when you practice this stuff enough, what's going to happen is your artistic instinct is going to kick in. That's what practice does. It helps you to create what I like to call artistic intuition. And once you get to that point, you can really start, instead of thinking your way through a drawing, you can start feeling your way through it. And that's when your characters get even more expressive. It's pretty nuts. And it's also a point within your development at which you'll start to find the drawing process much more fun and enjoyable again. It's interesting, the cycle that a lot of aspiring artists go through. You know, they start out, they're in that creative space, they want to draw really cool stuff, and they're really, you know, not that satisfied with what they're able to pull off, unfortunately. So they decide, well, I want to become a serious artist, and I'm going to study as hard as possible in order to get good. And so they start doing the anatomy studies, the figure drawings, exercises, and all that other good stuff that makes a well-trained artist an artist that can pull off the kind of thing that they're thinking they want to be able to execute on. But the thing is that when we're in that mindset, we're in a thinking space, okay? Analysis. And that's really, really good, in fact, for when you want to learn how to become really, really good at anatomy and learn about the proportions of the human body and getting all that pulled into check. The thing is, however, after a certain amount of time, after you've conquered those all-important fundamentals, you do have to click out of logical brain, okay, that self-monitoring brain, and move back into creative instinct. And that's where I think that a lot of artists in training kind of stumble, is they're in training for so long that they sort of forget why they decided to learn all this stuff in the first place, and they lose that authentic, genuine, creative version of their artistic selves that inspired them to become a well-trained artist in the first place. And you got to get that back. And that is the process of basically letting go everything you've learned. It's super weird to say that, I know, especially if you're in the early stages right now of learning this stuff, but it is the truth of the matter. You've actually got to let go a little bit. Probably drew that second set of abs a little too low there. In reality, everybody's abs are all different kinds of configured. So just, yeah, keep that in mind, that there is nuances to the human anatomy, variations that, can happen. So you can, believe it or not, you get a little looser on the anatomy in certain areas, as long as you got the muscles included in there. How you draw them in sometimes isn't as dire as you might imagine. Okay, there we go. drawing in the muscles of this guy's legs. So we're doing a little bit of an anatomy study here on top of the expression of the human figure. And the reason for that is I just want to show you how to build up some of these more simplified mannequin models. I think it's important to see where the rubber meets the road here, why we learn how to draw the mannequin model figure, because at first glance you might look at it and go, all right, well, that looks kind of boring. How does that help me draw a kick-ass looking amazing comic book character that blows people's minds? Well, this is how. It's just a foundation, and it's malleable, it's adjustable. You can basically sculpt it into whatever you want. And that's what you can think of it as. You can think of it as the armature that holds up everything else. And then you go ahead and you pack on the anatomy. Think of the bits of anatomy that you're adding on as literally like polymer clay, right? That you can push and pull and squish and essentially shape into whatever you want it to be. That is really, I think, one of the key realizations I had as a comic book artist, is that drawing is really a sculpting process. At least that's what resonates for me. And I think maybe at a certain point, it will resonate for you as well as you become a more experienced artist. But that's 4 different examples here. And none of them are bad, but only a few of them are great. All right. So this one here, pretty good. This one here, okay. These ones are off the chart though. These are much better. This is what you want to be going for. You want to be pushing those poses, pushing the energy of them to the max so that you can create a powerful impression on the audience. Keep their attention. Okay, it's basically just, it's like anything you would market. You need a good hook, all right? You need to hook in the audience, and you hook them in with amazing visuals. That is just the truth of the matter, the cold, hard truth, my friends. So I hope that you enjoyed this little tutorial and that you'll put it to good practice, utilize it to the greatest degree of opportunity possible, and ideally it'll have a positive impact on your comic book characters going forward. All right, that is a wrap. I hope that you enjoyed this lesson, that you got some value out of it. But don't just watch this and do nothing with it. I want you to take your pencil right now, if you haven't already, get your sketchbook down in front of you and start drawing up some of those examples that we went over in the lesson. And then beyond that, draw up your own examples, okay? Try out a few different poses. And the way that I suggest you approach it is you start off with an initial version of a pose that you think will work. Get that down on the page, take a look at it, and then ask yourself, how can I push this to the extreme? How can I max it out in terms of expression and emotion? That's what we want in order for our characters to have more energy, to feel more real and relatable, and have a little bit of personality. It's how we give our characters more character. Before we wrap this up, I'm going to go through the comments here and just address any that might have come up. I don't think we've ever had this many live viewers, by the way, tuning in. So I'm absolutely blown away here. My goodness, this is nuts. Maybe I should have done this sooner. Let's take a look. So, wow, we have so many wonderful people here. We got Michael. What's up, Michael? Great to see you here. I hope that you're doing good and that you feel inspired. After that, we've got Jeremy. What's up, Jeremy? Always a pleasure to see you pop up in the live chat. Hope you're feeling good and that you got some value out of that lesson. All right, we got Paulus Arts. What's up, Paulus Arts? How you doing, my friend? Feeling inspired? I hope so. All right, we got James dropping a link to the How to Draw Comics Academy. Now, like I mentioned throughout the lesson, a lot of the stuff we went over, if there was anything that kind of stumped you a little bit, like the foreshortening or the mannequin model construction, or even just getting an interesting pose down on the page, we have loads of lessons. And I mean an entire library that you can check out in the How to Draw Comics Academy. And you can see them all there listed. Oh, excuse me. I almost lost my voice there for a second. I got a little bit excited. But you can see all those lessons listed in the How to Draw Comics Academy vault. And there's a ton of stuff there. There's even free tutorials that you can check out. But it does cover things like figure drawing. We have a ton of anatomy lessons that have been uploaded to the Academy recently. And we've also got stuff on foreshortening, the fundamentals in general. So whether you're just starting out as a beginner or you're intermediate and you want to push your skills to that pro tier level that you see within the artists you admire who inspire you, then the How to Draw Comics Academy has most of what you're going to be looking for. And the brilliant part about it is that the lessons are live just like this. Plus, you get to keep the recordings. Yes, you actually get to download them and keep them if that's what you want to do, or you can stream them through that How to Draw Comics Academy itself. We've also got feedback sessions that are live every single week. In fact, we have a feedback session now an hour later after every lesson. So you could watch a lesson just like this one, do the exercise, and you're going to get immediate feedback on the work that you did in that lesson. How awesome is that? It's the missing key, I swear, to actually being able to make real progress as an online student in the art of comic book illustration. That's what I think anyway. It's why I incorporated it into the How to Draw Comics Academy. All right, we've got Grumpy Old Ninja. Hey, how you doing, Grumpy Old Ninja? Great to see you. Hope that you're feeling good, feeling inspired. We have Rick Saylor. What's up, Rick? Good to see you here, my friend. I hope that you're doing well and that, well, you got some value out of this lesson. Always wonderful to see your name popping up in the chat, my friend. I've kind of missed everybody here in the How to Draw Comics community. It's been too long, my friends, far too long. Okay, we have Sky Peace. What's up, Sky Peace? Good to see you. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's amazing to have you here. We have Ran Inc. What's up, Ran Inc. TV? Yeah, we got, we got Corey Barton tuning in too. What's up, Corey? I hope that you enjoyed this lesson, man. And heck, maybe you'll be able to use some of what I imparted here in terms of knowledge and wisdom in your own work. We've got Rick Zilla. Oh, hello, Rick Zilla. he says, don't mind me. I'm just drawing along. Awesome, man. Well, hey, you know what? Anyone who's following along there, please do post up any of the work that you did and tag me in it. So I'm How to Draw Comics basically everywhere, on X, on Instagram, on Facebook. At least the page is How to Draw Comics. So definitely tag me. I'd love to see your stuff and let me know in your post how you found the lesson, whether or not you got some value out of it and if it actually helped you, because that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to help. That's my mission when it comes to the How to Draw Comics Academy and the channel here. All right. Yeah, YouTube Clayton probably got a little bit excited there. I was like, oh, damn. This is the beauty of doing lessons live. Ah, boy. Well, you know, the How to Draw Comics Academy lessons aren't that different. They're maybe a little bit more formal, a little bit more toned down. Just as entertaining and engaging, though, I hope. Okay, Matt says, if you're working with a regular paper and pencil, holding it up to a mirror will work the same way as flipping the canvas and show you things about your drawing that you probably missed otherwise. Absolutely. And, you know, the other thing that you can do, as I mentioned, you can just walk away from it for like a little while. This happens to me all the time. I'll be working on something. I'll be sitting there, eyes glued to the screen for hours on end. I'm like, oh man, I really don't know how this is going. And then I'll walk away from it for like an hour or two. I'll come back to it later after having some time away, and I'll know instantly whether or not it's working or whether or not it needs to be corrected. And usually I'll be able to see exactly where it needs to be corrected after that little break. The other thing that you can do is, of course, if you have an art friend or an art family member that kind of knows what to look for when it comes to what's working about your art and what's not, then you can just ask them to take a look at it and get their opinion. I mean, that's also incredibly invaluable. But if you're part of the How to Draw Comics Academy, the other thing that you can do is you can post your works in progress into the How to Draw Comics Academy community and get the opinion of other like-minded, motivated comic book artists who are there to cheer you on and support your growth. All right. Cool. So we have SDA joining us. What's up, SDA? Absolute pleasure to see you here. We have Maria. Hey, what's up, Maria? Maria says, it's so great to see a live stream. I can't get enough of your artwork. Wow, Maria, thank you so much. That is a beautiful compliment. And you're going to make me blush here. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Glad you enjoyed the stream. All right. So Nick Suba. Hey, what's up, Nick? Great to see you here. Nick says, hey, Clay, good shit. Knocked out the first 2 figures. Will this stream be available on YouTube as well? Absolutely. That's exactly where we're streaming to right now, as well as Facebook, as well as X. And I think that's about it. I'll probably do an edited version of this lesson and upload it to the YouTube channel separately too, just to polish things up. It'll also be uploaded to the How to Draw Comics Academy as a downloadable tutorial. So yeah, it'll be available to everybody. And I'm planning on doing more of these free lessons on the YouTube channel throughout the week. We've also got some more podcast interviews that are happening as well. I believe that my good friend Michael is up next. His last name is escaping me right now, but he is the creator of Elysian Fields. And we're going to be chatting with him about crowdfunding your comic book, creating a comic book, hiring artists, and what to look for and all that other good stuff. It's going to be a heck of a conversation, I can tell already. Okay, next we've got Blue Boy Comics. What's up, Blue Boy Comics? Blue Boy says, hello, Clayton. You remember me as Badger Comics from early CG days. That is awesome, man. It's great to see you here. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you tuning in tonight. Wow, blast from the past. Back in the day indeed. Okay. Matt says, yep, great place to learn. We already read. I can't believe we've made it to the top already. My goodness. Well, if there's any other questions, please do let me know, especially if they relate to this lesson or the How to Draw Comics Academy. I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, we will call it a wrap on tonight's show. Odin, that's right. Michael Odin. Wonderful. Of course, how could I forget? What an awesome last name. Okay. Oh, my goodness. It looks like this actually went to Twitch, which is cool. So I was streaming to Twitch, believe it or not, trying to get out there a little bit more. I can't believe it actually worked. I thought it didn't work last time. Anyway, I don't know who that is. Clearly, they're spamming me on there. All right, what else have we got here? All right, awesome stuff. Okay, so James says, Clayton, I need to draw more and play Doom Dark Ages less. It is a challenge, but I'm making the time to sketch. Dude, how is Doom Dark Ages? Corey went out and picked it up yesterday. It's my brother who worked on me with Kozor Descent into Madness. And I'm a little bit jealous. It made me want to buy it like right there and then. I see it on Steam, $120, a little bit steep for the old wallet. And I just got hit. I got pummeled by bills yesterday. You ever have one of those days where just every bill comes at once? It was nuts, man. So unfortunately, I have to wait. But I'll get it. I'm definitely going to grab Doom Dark Ages. I mean, what an inspiring looking game. Not that I'm any good at playing these video games. I wish I was better, but my reflex reactions are just way too slow. I'm a slow dude. I'm slow with my art. I'm slow with things that surprise me. Okay. Yeah, so James says, Doom is pretty amazing. When you have a chance, I would recommend it. Lots of slaying to be done. Awesome stuff. Well, cool. SJM, what's up? Great to see you here. SJM says, I've had problems drawing the same character's face in different positions. You've really helped me, but I still can't get it right as I would like, to be honest. Awesome stuff. Well, I'm glad that I've helped you a little bit. And look, you're not the only one who struggles to capture a consistent looking face for their characters. You could roll all of it into design, right? The face, the unique face of your character is a design of a face, as well as the rest of their body, their hairstyle, all that good stuff. And, I mean, we can't go over it now, but I would say, just to give you a few quick tips, that really what you want to be looking at is capturing the same shape for the facial features from one representation of your character to another. So really focus in on and ask yourself, what shape specifically is my character's eyes? What shape is their eyebrows? Do they have thick eyebrows? Do they have thin eyebrows? What are the unique qualities that you want to establish for that character that you're going to draw for them over and over again to make sure they're recognizable? Ask yourself about their mouth. Okay, do they have thin lips, thick lips, no lips? Do they have a wide mouth, a narrow mouth? Okay, really try to take note of that, because these are the sub proportions, if you will, of the face and the facial features, how they relate to one another. And you'll also, mentioning that, want to make sure that your facial features are positioned consistently in relation to each other. So, for example, if in the initial version of your character concept, you've drawn them with the mouth and the width of the mouth coming out to be a certain length in comparison to where it aligns with the eyes, make sure in the next representation that you do of that character, it is the same. So it really comes down to face proportions and then feature shapes. You want to hone in on those areas, take note of them, and pay attention to them every single time you draw that character. And after a while, you'll just get to know that, let's say designing the Charlie the character, whatever, we'll call him Charlie, and you like the way he looks, make sure you draw him that same way each and every time. He's got a little mouth, draw him with a little mouth in every other representation of him. He's got a long face, draw him with a long face in every other representation of him. That's the key. Okay, Laser the 22 says, getting back into drawing. It's been rough relearning the basics. It always is. And you know what, though? You know what's amazing about the basics, Laser the 22, is that at the end of the day, no matter what level you get to, how experienced you become as an artist, you can always go back to the fundamentals with a refreshed, leveled up, evolved version of who you are as an artist. And you'll see those fundamentals differently every single time. You'll see how they can work for you in new ways. It's a pretty amazing thing. Okay, Grumpy Old Ninja says, I have that issue as well. I'm going through the lessons on YouTube of late to try and improve. Yeah, it's tough. I remember when I first started out trying to learn this stuff, trying to piece together all the different lessons and composites of knowledge that were out there was kind of difficult. And you could jump onto Udemy, you'd do a single course on a particular topic, and that was fine too. But I think one thing that was missing that I really wanted to incorporate into the How to Draw Comics Academy was a learning path. That's why I've taken so much time in the Academy course. So we have a course that all the lessons basically go into. And what it is it's a structured library that goes from the fundamentals to figure drawing, to anatomy, and into the more advanced topics such as character design and storytelling. And I think that is really what's missing from a lot of online education when it comes to, every category of learning, really, not just art, but everything is, it's not just about understanding one part of the journey, and it's not about understanding every part of the journey even. It's about understanding how those different individual topics run together, how those different areas of knowledge actually connect. And when you can tackle them in the correct order, because you have to understand that anatomy builds on top of the foundations. Anatomy builds on top of the figure drawing aspect. And the figure drawing builds on top of the basic primitive forms that you initially would learn about in order to understand form. And then form builds on top of the two-dimensional shapes. And then, heck, shapes build on top of line. So you've got to understand that these skills, you can't just learn them separately because they stack up on top of one another. You have to learn them in order to truly have an optimized, effective learning experience that gets you to where you want to be much faster than you otherwise would. It's very difficult to do that just watching random YouTube tutorials. Not that those tutorials are bad. I mean, look at a guy like Proco, right? Freaking, I love Proco's content. I think that it's some of the best content available. And back when I was coming up in the game, I was watching a lot of concept art channels. So you had, oh my goodness, I can't even remember them now. It's crazy. It's so long ago. I feel so old right now. But yeah, I mean, you got Mark Brunet. Mark Brunet is another legendary artist who was making tutorials way back when I first started learning how to draw. So he's been around for a while. So a lot of those tutorials and the content that they offer are really, really amazing. They got lots of value to them. It's just that it's important to also keep in mind that the structure comes into play in a very big way that most artists just don't think about. Okay, yeah, Proco is freaking fantastic. Oh wow, the chat's going off here. Yeah. Oh, we get a lot of people like that actually. We had a new member within the How to Draw Comics Academy just sign up. 60 years old. We had a lot of 50s and 60s in the How to Draw Comics Academy, believe it or not. It's kind of nuts. I didn't think it, but yeah, that's some of our audience, a big part of our audience, in fact. And what happens, and this is very relatable to a lot of people, is that they have this passion for drawing comics, for creating, for expressing themselves through story, and they're taught that they got to kind of drop that in order to find a realistic career that's going to pay the bills, it's going to support their family, and they get pulled away from it just because of life, right? Life's responsibilities. Even after they come home from the day job, there's no time to draw because you got to take care of the family and spend time with them, household chores, yada yada yada. A lot of which I neglect. I don't neglect my family, but I neglect a lot of household chores. Like my lawn is in desperate need of a mow, and it's just not happening. Probably not going to happen for a while. But after a certain amount of time, what I've found ends up happening just through observing my audience and the students that come into the How to Draw Comics Academy is they feel that calling. They come back to it, and it usually happens at either in their 30s, happens in their 50s, or it can happen much later too. So I think that if you're born with that innate passion and need to create, need to tell story through visual vehicles such as comic books, I don't think that ever goes away. I think that calling is always going to be there and you just can't shake it. It's going to haunt you until you go back to it. And I find that people who really do embrace their passion later on in life, jump back into it, really try to hone their skill set, they get a new lease on life. They wake up with more energy and excitement. They've got something to sink their teeth into that they really care about and that they really find fulfilling. It's a magical thing. It really is. Yeah, see, that's exactly. We got people relating to this stuff. Okay, awesome stuff. Don't worry, SJM, you'll get there, my friend. Great advice. Thanks. Greetings from Chile. I'm still amateur, but I'm slowly getting there. You'll get there. I promise you. Just keep on going. It is so worth the effort. You're going to get there as long as you don't stop. Okay? You will get there. It's a guarantee. Grumpy Old Ninja says, how to draw comics. How might you recommend someone approach controlling light while drawing in a style similar to Bruce Timm's? Okay, let's talk about that. What's Bruce Timm's work look like? I'm just going to look that up real quick. Oh, okay. So, oh, more like simplistic, right? Like stylized, really stylized. Cool. Sorry, I shouldn't say simplistic, more stylized. Um, so a lot of that lighting is going to come through the coloring. Okay, that's how it's going to be presented. It's not going to be presented through the line work. The line work is just going to be describing the shape of the character and their design. So if you're planning on actually coloring your character and shading them, and you want to capture the lighting through that particular avenue, then in that case, I mean, you would still be going through the same thought process as if you were doing a more complex, intricately rendered line art illustration. You'd still be thinking about where your light source is in relation to the character. So if it's up to the left, that's the first thing that you want to think about and establish. Okay, my light source is up to the left. I mean, you're seeing this on the right here, right? Yeah, the right. This will be the right based on how you're looking at me right now. Um, so let's say the light source is coming from here, which it actually is, believe it or not. See, I've got a light source right there. It's projecting onto me. If you can figure that out first and determine it, then that's going to tell you where the shadows are going to sit. If the light's coming from the left, then the shadows are going to fall on the right. It only makes sense. And the best way that you can think about this and really wrap your head around it is start out simple. If you've got a sphere underneath a light source, the light's projecting down onto it from the left, and the shadow is going to be on the right. Now, you also want to consider how powerful that light is and how far away it is. So if the light is close and there's a lot of light projecting down onto that subject, then that's going to create much more contrast between the light and dark values on the character. In other words, the shadows are going to be deeper and the lights are going to be lighter. Now, you also might find that there is much less shadow, or that the shadow is blown out by the light entirely. So the intensity of the light matters and its distance. Keep in mind also that sometimes you're going to have a light source that isn't just coming from the direct left, it's actually coming from the front left and from above. Okay, so light sources work within 3 dimensions as well. And I think that one mistake, especially colorists, make, and I've recently had to correct some coloring that a colorist did because of this issue, and that was that they have sometimes the habit of placing a highlight directly on the far left or the far right of the form. And what that leads to is a very two-dimensional rendering of your drawing. So you don't want that. You don't want two-dimensional rendering in the coloring process. You actually want to think about where that light source is, not just which side it's on of the form, but whether or not it's coming forward or back or up or down as well. And that's going to determine where the core highlight is going to bounce off of the form. And usually, if you're working wisely as a colorist, you're going to place that highlight. Let's say the light is predominantly coming from the left. Well, you're going to bring that highlight in a little bit, okay? So it's not completely on the edge of that form. You're going to bring it in a little bit and have it run down, yes, the left-hand side, but also the front or the top of that form. And that's going to create you'll find that it creates an instantly more three-dimensional rendering of your art. Anyway, it's a little bit hard to explain, and there's a lot to go over when it comes to lighting. Of course, I'm not going to be able to give you the whole lowdown here, but you know what I'll do for you, my friend? Maybe we'll do another lesson in the How to Draw Comics YouTube channel or the How to Draw Comics Academy, because lighting is a really big deal. And we'll talk about lighting even more in depth. And I'll show you exactly what the heck I'm talking about. But because it probably sounds like a bunch of mumbo jumbo coming out of my mouth right now without me actually drawing an example of it. Okay, Rand says, it's great info that I feel like I should have been using already. Well, that is friggin' awesome, man. I'm glad that you're finding it useful. Okay. All right. Grumpy Old Man says, I can't give up. Not anymore. I'm never putting my pencil down again. Old as I am, I have to succeed at this. I need to. Abso-freaking-lutely. keep at it. Man, you know what? You'd be surprised how many talented individuals start late in life and become absolute legends of their craft. I'm talking actors, I'm talking writers, I'm talking artists, the whole shebang. Trust me, you can start this stuff anytime you want and become an absolute master. I'm telling you. In fact, it's probably really good to have a passion later on in life. That's no joke. Alrighty. Hey, what's up, Art? Great to see you here. What a legend. A legend of the comic book world has joined us for this stream. What an honor to have you here, Art. I hope that you're doing well and that your comic book projects are coming along swimmingly. Awesome stuff. Okay, well, there is some really awesome comments here. So the Will Studios. Hey, what's up, the Will Studios? I hope that you're doing good, man. Thanks so much for joining us. It's amazing to have you here. So the Will Studio says the dream never dies. I'd given up on being an artist back when I was 19 or so, and picked it up again when I was 30 and decided I had to tell my story. Heck yes, that story, it's not going to let go of you. It's going to want to get out there into the world. I don't know what that means, whether or not we're just like the conduit for whatever it is that is feeding us those ideas and wants to get out there into reality. But there's something to be said about the fact that creativity has this, it has this will to survive, this will to execute, and it comes through us in a way that we just can't ignore a lot of the time, no matter how much we try to bury it and forget about it. Oh yeah, knowing anatomy in your head is an incredible tool to have in your arsenal as a comic book artist. It's so valuable. I'm telling you, I use anatomy literally to piece together my characters. It's become a real asset in my process, I have to say. As Art Bear says, it's never too late. And Art would know because he is indeed a veteran in the world of comics. Really awesome. We've got to catch up again, Art. It'd be amazing to have another conversation with you. All right, we got Rex Mogi, another member of the How to Draw Comics Academy, joining us for this stream. What's up, Rex? Great to see you here. Rex says, I missed the lesson. Stayed for the words of wisdom. Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you get some value out of those words of wisdom, Rex, and hope that you'll rewatch the lesson and also draw some value from that. Okay, sweet as. Well, I know that I might have missed a few people there, and I do apologize if I did. We're going to wrap this show up. I hope that you had an amazing time because I know that I did. And that what I've shared with you here in this lesson, whether it be the aftermath of the lesson or in the lesson itself, I hope that you'll put it to good use and that you'll see some enhanced results within your art through doing that. Because what I'm here to do is not necessarily just to show off my own art skills and to run my mouth. I actually am intending you to take this stuff on board and put it to work for you. You know, that's what it's there for. That's what's really going to help this stuff to click is when you take action on it. So, yeah, watch this stuff. Watch it a few times over if you like, but make sure you take action on it. And that's when you're going to find that a lot of this stuff, it actually clicks. And if you go through it and you do decide to put what you've learned here to use and you struggle with it a little bit, you run into some obstacles, let me know about it in the comments below. Because if I can, I'll do another lesson that addresses those obstacles so that you can surpass them and ultimately level up your skill set in this area and any other area of comic book illustration that we decide to tackle going forward. Once again, I had a lot of fun teaching you this stuff, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Until next time, keep on drawing, keep on creating, and I'll see you again real soon. Bye bye for now.